My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 26, live just outside Manchester, UK, and work as a paramedic for the NHS. People see me as calm under pressure, the type of bloke who holds it together when everyone else falls apart. But that's only part of me. This is the story I've never told anyone. I call it, she said, "You're my husband now," then handed me a baby. It started like most of the strange stories in my life do, on a night shift. It was 2:13 a.m., the kind of damp British night that crawls under your skin and makes everything feel colder than it should. The emergency call came from a block of council flats in Wythenshawe. Reported, woman in distress, possible postpartum crisis. We arrived in under 7 minutes. The lift was broken, so we had to climb 5 flights of stairs. Me and my partner, Mo's been doing this job longer than I've been out of uni. He's got a belly full of curry and a mouth full of sarcasm. "Bet it's just another junkie screaming for attention," he muttered as we reached the door. I didn't answer. Something felt wrong. I knocked. A long silence. Then the door cracked open, and I swear, that moment changed my life forever. She stood there barefoot, pale as chalk, wearing an oversized t-shirt soaked in sweat. Her eyes were wild, but not drug crazy, more like trapped animal crazy. In her arms was a baby, wrapped in a pink blanket, barely a few days old. And then she said it, calmly, clearly, like she'd been rehearsing. "You're my husband now." And then she handed me the baby. I didn't take it. Not right away. My training kicked in. I asked her name, the baby's name, if she was on medication, if she had family, if she needed help. But she just kept shaking her head. "He said you'd come," she whispered. "He said if I waited, you'd come for us." I exchanged a look with Mo. He was already backing away, radioing for backup. "Miss," I said carefully, "you need to tell me where the father is. Is the baby hurt? Are you hurt?" She looked at me, dead in the eyes, and said, "You are the father. You just don't remember. We got her to hospital." She didn't resist. She just kept whispering things. To the baby, to herself. "Daddy's here now. He's safe. We're safe." She refused to give any name except Ava. That night I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until sunrise. The next morning, I was called into a meeting at the hospital. There were 2 social workers, a detective, and a pediatric psych consultant waiting. I thought they were going to ask about the call, maybe do a routine debrief. But instead, the older social worker, and I think, opened a file and said, "Daniel, the baby's birth certificate lists you as the father. And the mother, she says you've been married for 3 years." I laughed. I actually laughed. "That's not possible. I've never seen her before last night." They didn't laugh. They showed me the certificate. My full name, date of birth, national insurance number, all accurate. "She has photographs," the detective said, "of you, in her flat, with her, with the baby. Some look like they're from at least a year ago." I was stunned. "That's not me," I said, but my voice was cracking. "Facial recognition says it is you," Anne replied gently. "Couldn't work." I took leave. I spent the next 3 days trying to track down anything. Any trace of Ava online, any record, any clue. But she was like a ghost. No social media, no friends, no job history I could find. Just a woman who somehow had everything about me. I called my mom. "Mom," I said, voice shaky, "do you know a woman named Ava who says she's my wife?" Silence. Then she said something that chilled me deeper than anything yet. "Danny, you dated a girl named Ava back in uni briefly. She was intense. You never brought her home. Said she scared you." Something broke inside me, because I didn't remember any of that. I went back to the hospital. She was still in psychiatric observation. She seemed calm, happier than before. The baby, named Eli, was in a cot beside her, sleeping peacefully. She lit up when she saw me. "You came back." "Ava," I said carefully, "tell me the truth. Did we know each other before last night?" She reached for my hand. Her skin was cold. "I knew you'd forget," she said softly. "It's okay. You always forget. But I never do." "Forget what?" She smiled, a strange, sad smile. You promised me forever, and now here we are, back at the start. That night I dreamed of her, of running, of blood, of screaming, of a hospital room filled with shattered glass. And when I woke up, there was a scar on my shoulder I'd never noticed before. I didn't go back to the hospital the next day. Instead, I went to a friend, Jamie, a tech nerd I met through a first aid course years ago. The kind of guy who builds VPNs for fun and can pull public records faster than Google. You ever hear of someone rewriting your life without you knowing? I asked him, half joking, half desperate. Jamie looked at me like I dropped acid. Mate, that's not how reality works. Unless you're in a coma or someone's spiking your tea. I need you to look into a woman named Ava Grafton. Claims she was my wife. Has photos, a baby, a birth certificate with my damn NI number. He paused. You sure you're okay? No, that's exactly why I'm asking. He nodded, cracked his knuckles, and got to work. In the meantime, I tried to live normally, but normal was slipping away. I couldn't stop thinking about her. Ava. Her voice. The way she said my name like it had history. The way she looked at me not with madness, but with love. Real, haunting, bottomless love. Was it possible I'd forgotten an entire chapter of my life? Or was she rewriting it for me? The next morning, Jamie texted, Bro, come over. Now, this is next level disturbing. I drove like a madman. He had a wall of monitors, all filled with images, records, threads. So, first off, there's no birth certificate for Eli in the NHS or public registry. Jamie began. Only the one Ava gave the hospital. And the photo ID of you is doctored. Your face, your real face, has been deep-faked onto someone else's body. But it's brilliantly done. My mouth went dry. She faked all of it? Here's the kicker. He zoomed in on one old file. A police report from 2019. Ava Grafton, admitted to a psych ward for delusional identity disorder. She was convinced a man named Daniel Carter was her fiancé. I stared. That's your name, mate. Couldn't breathe. How could she have latched onto me? I barely remembered her from uni. Just a vague, uncomfortable memory. Maybe we kissed once. Maybe not. But for her, I'd apparently become a fantasy so real. She bent her entire reality around it. And then a baby. I went back to the hospital. This time, with permission, I spoke with Ava again. I sat across from her in a small therapy room. She looked calmer, her hair tied back. She was humming something to Eli, who was asleep in her lap. Why me? I asked. She smiled without looking up. Because you saved me, years ago, and you promised you'd never leave. Ava. We were never together. She looked at me with quiet devastation. Just because you don't remember it doesn't mean it didn't happen. After that, I asked the psychiatric team if they'd do a DNA test to confirm whether I was the baby's biological father. Took a week, the longest week of my life. In that time, something started to shift. I visited Eli daily. I fed him, held him. He stopped crying when I walked into the room. He'd fall asleep in my arms. That little hand curled around my finger like he knew me. And I started to feel something I couldn't explain. A pull, connection, a terrifying, beautiful warmth. When the results finally came in, the lead consultant called me into her office. She had the papers in her hand. Daniel, she said, are you sure you're ready? Just tell me. She nodded, then read. Probability of paternity, 0%. You are not the biological father of this child. I exhaled. Relief, confusion, guilt. But then she added something that stopped me cold. There's more. We ran a second test because Ava insisted. She claimed the baby's name is Eli Carter Grafton. And Daniel, the father is registered as your identical twin brother. I don't have a twin, I said. That's what we thought. But you were adopted, weren't you? My blood froze. How do you know that? It's in your NHS history. You were adopted at birth. No known siblings. But your original birth file, sealed, shows 2 infants born, not 1. You had a twin, Daniel. Everything tilted. I left the hospital in a fog. Somewhere out there was a man who shared my face. A man Ava did love. A man who maybe did marry her. And a man who might have left a baby behind, my nephew. But why hadn't anyone told me? And where the hell was he? That night, I sat in my flat, holding a framed photo of my parents. Adoptive, loving, honest. At least I'd always believed that. I called my mom. She didn't pick up. The next morning, I drove to their house. And as soon as she opened the door, before she could say a word, I asked, "Mom, did I have a brother?" Her face collapsed. My mom didn't speak for a long time. She just stared at me with this look, like something she'd buried decades ago was clawing its way to the surface. She stepped aside and I followed her in. "Please," I said quietly, "I need the truth." She sat down at the kitchen table, wringing her hands. The silence felt suffocating. "You were 6 months old when we got you," she said finally. "They told us there had been complications, that your twin didn't make it. But a year later we got a letter, anonymous. It said your brother was alive, that he'd been given to a different family. Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered. "Because we couldn't prove it. The agency denied it. We thought it would hurt more to give you hope than to let you believe you were alone." She started to cry. I didn't blame her. I just sat there, trying to understand how I could live a quarter of a century without knowing half of myself was missing. Jamie was the one who helped me again. We searched adoption records, private databases, obscure forums where birth relatives reconnect. Took days, until one night I got a ping. A man named Lucas Dane, born the same day, same hospital, same birth weight, no social media, no photos, but a digital trail of jobs in Manchester, Birmingham, and 2 years living in Sheffield. And one photo, a blurry staff directory shot from a university Ava once attended. He looked just like me, except he wasn't smiling. I brought it to the police. They started their own investigation quietly, because now we weren't just dealing with psychological confusion. Now it involved possible identity fraud, and possibly more. They cross-checked Lucas's records, found an address, a flat he rented last year, just 2 blocks from Ava's place. But he was gone. No forwarding address, no bank activity in months. A ghost. I went back to Ava one last time. "Lucas, that's his name, isn't it?" I asked. She looked down at Eli. Her eyes welled with tears. "He left us," she said softly. "I told him I was pregnant, and he vanished. But you, I never stopped thinking about you. You're the better version of him. You came back." "Ava," I said, my voice shaking, "I'm not him, but you could be." That sentence broke something inside me, because a small, terrible part of me wanted to be. I didn't see Ava again after that. She was transferred to a long-term care facility, where she could get the help she needed. The baby Eli was placed with temporary foster care, but I couldn't let him go. He wasn't mine by blood, but he was mine by circumstance. He looked like me. He calmed when I held him. He knew me somehow in that way only children do, instinctively with trust and simplicity. So I made a decision that changed everything. I applied for guardianship, not as his father, but as his uncle. The courts were hesitant, but after DNA tests, psychological evaluations, and months of hearings, it was granted. I took Eli home the week he turned 1. He cried the first 2 nights. So did I. But by the 3rd night, he reached for me in his sleep. And I knew I was exactly where I was supposed to be. Epilogue, the other half of me. It's been 2 years now. Eli is walking, talking, laughing. He calls me Dada. Even though I've never encouraged it, I tried to find Lucas again. For Eli. For myself. But he's vanished. As if he never existed. Sometimes I wonder if he's dead. Or hiding. Or watching from somewhere. But mostly I wonder what kind of man he was. What kind of father he might have been. And whether, somewhere deep in our DNA, I'm just a slightly different version of him. Ava writes letters from the facility. They're not always coherent. But she never forgets Eli's birthday. Or mine. Sometimes I read her letters out loud to him. Because I want him to know his mother loved him. fiercely, even if it broke her. People ask me why I did it, why I took in a child that wasn't mine, why I didn't just walk away once the truth came out. And I never have a perfect answer. But here's what I've learned. Sometimes love doesn't arrive in the right order. Sometimes it comes tangled in lies, confusion, and heartbreak. But if you look closely beneath the madness, there's something pure. A baby was handed to me by a woman who believed I was her husband. She wasn't right, but she wasn't entirely wrong either. Because in that moment, I became something I never expected to be. A protector, parent, a man willing to love without condition. This is the story I never told anyone, but I carry it with me every single day.